Welcome everyone to the final round of the Asian Continental 2025. We have Nihal Sarin with the white pieces taking on Daneshvar Bardiya. Daneshvar has played a great tournament here. He is on 7 out of 8 and has 1 point lead over the field. Nihal Sarin is on 6 points and will be looking to beat his opponent to equalize the score and finish joint first. Knight comes out to f6 here. We have an interesting choice by Nihal, who's gone d4 and he plays his knight out to f3. Nihal has had good last 3 rounds with victories. After being on 3 out of 5, he's now 6 out of 8. Meanwhile, Daneshvar has beaten strong players in this tournament like Abhimanyu Puranik, Indian, and he's been playing really well. Knight comes out to c3 and d5 played, stopping the pawn from going to e4. And Nihal plays the Jobawa London here with bishop to f4. Very interesting. He's putting pressure here on c7 and maybe with the idea of knight b5 next. But bishop g7 was played by Daneshvar. He's like, if you play knight b5, I'll play my knight to a6 defending this pawn. Nihal does go knight to b5, attacking the pawn on c7. And now knight a6 makes a lot of sense. Yes, knight comes out to a6, defending the pawn here. And e3 played by Nihal. Black can now kick back the knight with c6 here and should be completely fine. But Daneshvar first castles. And Nihal brings his bishop out to e2. He wants to castle next. One good move now for black is knight h5, trying to go after this bishop on f4. He goes bg4 and pins the knight here. Nihal can already question the bishop on with the move h3, but he simply castles here. If you look at the clock timings, both players have 1 hour 20 minutes on the clock. Pawn to c6, asking the question to the knight. Now you can go back to c3 or to a3 so as to keep the c pawn free. Nihal chooses the latter. He goes back knight to a3. Also somewhere the ideas of bishop takes a6 can come into the picture. May not be the best, but possible. Daneshvar goes active. He defends the knight but also attacks the pawn on b2. And you need to defend this pawn. Rook b1 might be the best way here. Yes, he brings his rook to b1. And pawn to c5 played. This move breaks the center and perhaps it's a bit too aggressive here. Nihal wants the bishop pair. If you take here, bishop takes, that gives white some nice bishops on the diagonal. So maybe Daneshvar tries to preserve it and also attacks here so the c pawn cannot move. Knight goes to h4, attacking the bishop here on f5. And the bishop comes back to d7. Let's see how Nihal continues here, because bishop goes back and maybe the best move now is to just play pawn to c3. Yes, he pushes his pawn to c3 and the hope is that in future he can take, maybe expand with b4 and c4. This is what Nihal would like to do. Knight b8, being very cheeky here, he wants to get his knight to c6 and makes a lot of sense. The knight on a6 wasn't doing much. Nihal brings back his knight to f3, trying to look at in the center. You will see that the first 14 moves of this game have been very maneuvering in nature. And now bishop f5 comes back to attack the rook here. But Nihal has an intermezzo here. If he moves the rook, he would lose the b2 pawn. But first he takes. And the queen has no square here to keep an attack on b2, so has to take on c5. So queen takes c5 played. And rook c1. The idea here is to play pawn to b4 and then c4. Yes, so the knight comes out to d7 here. And I think already Nihal is the one who is putting some pressure in the position. He brings his knight to b5, a very nice move. Now, some ideas that you can see are knight c7 followed by b4, which could very well put the queen in big trouble here. So, rook f8 I think makes some sense. b4 you have queen b6 to keep fighting. But instead he goes bishop e4, and this may be not the best. You can see how Daneshvar is making small errors and going wrong. b4 played by Nihal. There is no time to take on f3. The queen is attacked. The queen can go back to c6, but then it would be attacked again here. So queen c8 played. And now Nihal can jump in with the knight to c7 maybe. No, he goes c4. He opens up the c file. Wow, that's a great move. Also, if you try to take here, I can take back. And if you try to win a pawn, this is not going to be very useful. This pawn will perish in the future. So he takes on c4. But now rook takes c4 is a very strong move. You can see just like that. Oh, he takes with the bishop. Nice. Threatening bishop f7. Just like that, Nihal has got a huge advantage out of the opening. Daneshvar plays queen d8. And even though the material is even, it's just completely dominating position. Bishop goes to c7. Again, attacking the queen. The queen has to go to c8 or e8. These are the options. And Daneshvar has 34 minutes on the clock. Nihal also somewhere around the same. Queen goes to e8 after a very long thing, and Nihal quickly goes back bishop h2. He has 24 minutes. He's threatening knight c7 to give a fork here. And Daneshvar doesn't like his position, that's for sure. Queen d8 back. Queen b3 played, putting pressure on the f7 point. Not really afraid of these doubled pawns because yes, they are a bit weakening, but there is no one who can attack the white king. And Daneshvar does take bishop f3. And now g takes f3. Very sensible move. Now if you try to wonder what is the way in which white can break through is one question. But you know, he just brings his rook into the center. Daneshvar tries to go aggressive because pawn to e5 has a small drawback. He has weakened the d6 square here. So knight jumps into d6, attacking f7 and b7. A very difficult moment here. He plays queen e7. Now the rook comes into the center and now rook b8. defending here. Nihal could have snatched the pawn earlier, but now he goes for a sacrifice. Bishop takes on f7. Beautiful move, attacking the king. And now rook f7. What does Nihal have in his mind? Because if you take on f7, queen takes f7, queen takes, king takes, he has two knights for a rook, which is actually fine. But actually Nihal does not even go for the rook. He goes rook c7. Really a lovely move. And one idea could be to take here and then pick up the knight on d7 with the two rooks attacking. So he goes rook f8, defending his rook on f7. And Nihal captures a pawn. Wow. Nihal is like, I'm not greedy for material. Look at the domination of the position. This knight cannot move as it's pinned. The other knight cannot move because the knight on d7 would hang. Bishop has nowhere to go. Rook is pinned. The other rook is defending it. Queen is precariously positioned. And Nihal is going after the pawns here. Beautiful. Actually, Nihal's patience and understanding here has been impeccable. King h8 played. And now, do you go rook a6? I mean, it breaks the pin, but it's also a pretty good move. But he goes bishop e5. Sack. Another sack. Queen takes e5. There is knight takes f7. Wow. What a nice move. Knight takes e5 impossible because it's pinned. Bishop takes f6 could very well be the next threat, followed by knight f7. So queen takes on e5. And Nihal comes back to the board. He knows that he is winning here. Knight takes on f7 check. Rook takes f7. And the easiest is to simply chop off this. Now the threat is rook d7, threat is rook a8. Too many problems to solve. Gives a check. If you go king f1, maybe there's queen b5 check. And Nihal calmly plays king h1 with no checks on the board. Rook a8 coming up. Rook d7 coming up. Daneshvar resigns. His first loss in the tournament. Nihal Sarin wins. Although on tiebreak, Daneshvar did pick the first place. But Nihal, what a finish to his tournament. 4 wins in a row, 4 out of 4 to score 7 out of 9 and finish joint first, thereby securing his spot in the FIDE World Cup 2025. Brilliant by the youngster. And also, I think Nihal does feel someone who is now looking more aggressive in his games, taking more chances in general. And he's also pumping up his rating. Nihal Sarin, who was close to 2700, is now on 2696.